Hey everyone, it's Todd from Todd and Beck Photography. You ever go out for a photo shoot and you come back and you have a massive amount of photos and you just don't know what to do with them, how to organize them, how to get them onto your computer and go through them? That's what I'm going to talk about today. I want to show you how I go into Lightroom and I go through the photos quickly, marking the ones that are bad for deletion and marking the ones that I want to come back to later for editing and to potentially add to my portfolio. If you have any suggestions, you can put them down in the comments below for how you do it if you have a better way of doing it. I'm always looking to learn, but I wanted to share how I do it. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't, maybe you can help me. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Okay, before I switch over to the desktop view and start showing you how I go through Lightroom, I want to talk briefly about how I store the images on my camera and how I get them from the camera into the computer. On my D850 Nikon, there's a compact flash drive and there is an SD card. I put the JPEG images on the SD cards and I put the raw images on the compact flash card. When I move it over to the computer, I only use the compact flash and I transfer the raw images and I strictly work with raw images because I find that I can do more with them in Lightroom. If I was doing something quick for somebody, maybe I would use the JPEG images if I wasn't going to edit them at all or do anything. But I take the compact flash drive from my Nikon. I use this, I think it's a Ben-Fi cheap compact flash adapter, and it has a USB-C and a regular USB on the other end. I put the compact flash in there, put in the USB drive, go into Windows Explorer, and then I will either copy or cut and paste. So it's either Control C or Control X, depending on what I want to do, and depending on how precious the pictures are for me. If I'm like shot somebody's wedding, I might start off by doing copy and paste so I make sure that I get them safely to another location before just taking them off of my card. Although I do have the backup JPEGs, but I'm very careful about how I manage my raw images. So next we'll go over and I'll show you how I work this on the computer. Okay, I'm going to start us off on my E drive, which is my 3 terabyte hard drive. It's a Seagate 7200 RPM, so it's a little faster than your normal laptop 5400 hard drive. I prefer to work with 7200 RPM hard drives or SSDs if I have them, but for larger storage, I generally use regular hard drives. So the way I organize my photos is this. I have the eDrive pictures, and I start off with a year folder. And inside the year folder, I have the months. So I'm currently in the month of December, and I've copy and pasted all of my Nikon pictures into the root of the December folder. And then I also create a OM1 folder to put my wife's photos in so we can keep them separated. She's really competitive about her photos and likes to keep hers separate from mine, which is understandable. So I'm going to focus here on how I go in here and how I open up Lightroom and edit this. Okay, so just so I would have fresh images, I stopped recording for a second, ran out back, and took some new photos of the birds that are very cooperative here at the house. So I would have something to walk through this with. I've put in my card, and it comes up on the computer automatically. It's DSIM 100N D850. So the first thing that I do is I go in and I sort by date. And then I'll take all the ones from 12/29, which is today, hold down the Shift key, get the first and last one. I'm going to do Control X because I really don't care if I lose these. Then I'm going to go over to my eDrive Pictures 2025 December, hit Control V. That puts them in there. Okay, now it's time to head over to Lightroom. So I use Lightroom Classic. Okay, there we go. Now we're on the right monitor while we're trying. Aha, okay, progress. So I go over to 2025 December. I'm going to right click on it and say synchronize folder. It sees that I have 17 new photos. I'm going to say synchronize. It'll open up the import window, and it'll have little check boxes automatically by the new photos. And I'm going to say import, and that will add them to my library. we go. So it added them at the end of my other photos that I took yesterday at Huntley Meadows. So what I'll do, you can see along the bottom here where the cursor is, there's different views you can do. You can do the individual photo view, you can do this view. So I'm going to jump down to the new photos I took at the bottom, and I'm going to double click on it to open it up in the preview. Alright, so immediately I can see that it's not a great picture, so I'm going to hit the X button, which marks it for deletion. Then I'm going to use my arrows on my keyboard to arrow over to the next photo. That looks a little better, so I'm going to hold down the control button and zoom in on it. And this little goldfinch doesn't look horrible. See, I can use the hand thing to drag it around so it's more centered. So I'll keep that one. I don't know that I really want to mark it. I would press 1 to mark it for something I really want to look at later and try to get into a sort of a portfolio. The other thing to notice is if I zoom in and go on the next one, it'll stay zoomed in, which is kind of cool. That's a kind of a nice feature so that I don't have to keep zooming in and out on photos. That one's not terrible either, so I'm going to not delete it. I'll go to the next picture. Still, I would keep that. I'd probably keep that. I can do something with the lighting. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And there's a little chickadee. Here we go. This one is definitely needs to be deleted. He was moving and it didn't take great shots, so I'm going to hit the X button. Now it's ready for deletion. Same thing with this. This is another throwaway. Hit the X. This is out of focus. Sometimes they just won't stand still for you. X. X. Oh, wait, now he's in focus. Oh, I really like that picture too. You can see all the, I almost said fur. Yes, they don't have fur. All right, let's go to the next. And I got him over on the feeder, holding one of the no mess nuts that I get from the Wild Birds Unlimited place. All right, shooting one up in the tree. Zoom in. Sometimes I'll keep them if I want to identify a photo that I don't plan on actually printing, but I want to know what the bird is later, so I can look it up in the Merlin app and take a photo and see if I can identify it. But I don't like this photo. I already have that bird, I'm sure, so I'm going to hit set as rejected. And that might be the last one. Let's take a look. Yes, that was the last one in the set. So now what I do is I hit Control and Backspace, and it brings up this little window that gives me options of how I want to do it. I can remove it just from Lightroom, or I can delete it from the disk. But the whole point of this exercise is to keep the hard drives from filling up. I've got 5 terabytes full. I filled up my hard drive and had to go through and do this to delete a lot. So that's why this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart right now, is trying to keep my folders clean and not leaving bad photos just laying around taking up space, especially with this D850, because it makes very large raw images and they take up a lot of space. So I'm going to delete those from the disk, and then they're gone. And that's how I go through and trim and delete my unneeded or unwanted photos pretty quickly. So now that I've shown you how to cull the unwanted images and delete them out of there, I want to show you how I go back and find the ones that I hit the 1 for to mark them with a 1. So in your library view, if you hit the backslash button, up here it'll show the library filter. Click on attribute and select 1 star. You could select 2 stars. I don't have any that match 2 star. If I had a 4 star, but I generally, the first time through, I give 1 star. If I come back later and I edit a photo and really make it portfolio worthy, I'll give it 4 or 5 stars. So here are the ones that have 1 star. As I mentioned before, I really like this guy, this Carolina chickadee. So I'm going to draw him up. There we go. Better preview. All right. So that is the filter. And I'm going to turn off filter and see it says show it again. So you can hit the backslash to make the filter show up, make it go away. I'm not going to go through how I'm going to edit this up. That'll be in a future video. But you can see that I've filtered it down to just the 1 star photos. and it will let me scroll through them as I use the arrow button to go back and forth through those. So in my next video, I'll get into how I go in and do my first edits. I will give you a hint. I denoise a lot of these raw images because when you're shooting up in trees and things, I keep my ISO setting on auto, and that will crank up the ISO and make images kind of noisy, especially on micro four thirds cameras like my wife's OM1. So Lightroom's denoise function is the best I've ever seen. It's really the only reason I pay for this. Otherwise, I'd be using Paint Shop Pro like I used to. And I'll walk through that in the next video. So thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you have some ways that would speed this up for me, ways you do it that are better than this, by all means, put them down in the comments below. If not, please remember to subscribe to the channel. We're relatively new and trying to get a viewer base going. And like the video because that helps me with the YouTube algorithms. So thank you very much for watching.